Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So I know it's been a bit of time since the last video, I've just been a bit busy, but jumping straight into today's video, I'll be setting up the discussion. We're going to be watching a little clip and then exploring and expanding a bit more on knowledge management. From a quick Google search, here is how it's defined. Knowledge management is a collection of methods relating to creating, sharing, using, and managing the knowledge and information of an organization. It refers to a multidisciplinary approach to achieve organizational objectives by making the best use of knowledge. Right off the bat, it's interesting that they say using, because I don't think companies have really cracked operationally using knowledge from knowledge management. I'll be kind of going into this a bit later. But there's a few angles and tools to look at knowledge management from in its current form. So firstly, you have documentation, which are services like Confluence. As the topic suggests, this is where you document processes, code, usage details, and things like that. You have knowledge management in terms of past queries. So basically query logging, query analytics for any DBMS or like Snowflake, things like that. Like for example, you want to search your past queries. It's hard to do that because you need to know the specifics of the columns, tables that you were trying to search, rather than the business aspects that you wanted to look up. Then it also leads to areas like higher level project management tools like SmartSheets. So this is your Gantt charts and more operational planning type tools. And then you have workload management tools, which can be like JIRA or Trello. This is where you create work tickets, where you kind of define some scope of work, assign it to someone, and then you can kind of log some updates of the work. The main problem with these tools is that firstly, even within these management tools, they all live separately, creating a divide between knowledge management in itself, and hence it's not so knowledgeable. The other problem is not only is the knowledge management divided from itself, you're also divided from the actual code, data applications, and visualizations. After I play this clip, I'll be going into the specific use cases where this sort of integrated system becomes massively advantageous and the new ways in which you can think about managing your business. So if you're a new viewer, welcome along. If you're returning, thank you for your continued support. Let's get started.
So search is really, really important. The ability to ask these questions and to get answers from your data is important. But by itself, it's not really enough. It's not sufficient. Because I might give you a piece of information. I might tell you, OK, Saad is a Palantir employee. You really need more information to make use of that bit of data. You might want to know, for example, where did this information come from? Who says that Saad works for Palantir? You might want to know, when did we first learn this information? When did the information enter the system? And you might want to know, for example, who's actually allowed to see this? So we might need to separate our data into different compartments. And so Palantir is designed from the beginning with this idea of knowledge management in mind. Every piece of data that enters Palantir is tracked with respect to how and when it entered the system, who's allowed to see it, how the information has changed over time, and to what data sources we attribute this information. And again, all of this is key to doing good analysis, knowing not just what you know, but how and when you knew it, how the information has evolved. So knowledge management is important, which is a way of saying that data and metadata are both important.
So in this example, he just says Saad is a Palantir employee. And how do you check for that? Who said this? When did this happen? And really basically finding out the context to a statement. So that's a pretty good example, but I don't think it really helps to expand on and really think about knowledge management as a whole use case and industry to be serviced, And hopefully I'll be trying to give examples related to that. The first example that really pops out to me pretty naturally is audit trailing. At the base, this is about looking at who enters data, who amends it, deletes it, shares it, basically takes some action in some form on data. Currently, audit trailing isn't fully possible because, as I mentioned, all the current tools and apps live separately, and you have to go link all these different parts manually as a human operator, which even if you had the most determined auditor, it's a massive undertaking, especially since not only do you need to get all these knowledge management assets together, but you need to sort it correctly, chronologically, in order to really understand the flow of information and the causality of actions taken. For example, you want to look at who developed your Gantt chart. Was it a good plan? From this, who was assigned specific tasks under the Gantt chart projects? Were they the right person to assign this to? Then you want to look at the specific work that the assigned employee did. Did it meet objectives that were set out? Then how was this documented? Where was this documented? Was it well documented? And then who was it shared to? Like, did all this work actually diffuse into your business properly? With Palantir, the idea is that the compilation of data related to this problem is already done, since the system inherently works from linking all information and is one source of data. The only work an employee theoretically has to do after is analyze where the problems occur. As I mentioned before, it can be corporate operational analytics, finding where breakdowns happen and root cause analysis, things like that. I wouldn't say it's really about finding the root cause and then firing the employee responsible, but rather it's about the concept of failing fast and learning what processes aren't supported well. Obviously, in some cases where there is malicious intent and action and someone should be fired, there might be people fired. But the main point is to find the weak spots in your business and gain efficiencies that way. Then there's obviously a law, accounting, finance, compliance aspect. So say in a courtroom where one side tries to sue the other and wants access to digital records. This becomes a lot more powerful and stops larger corporates from, in courtroom dramas, you always see this, but burying the little guy in paperwork. A system like Palantir, I would say, greatly speeds that up because it's basically you're just doing a command F of the records that are relevant and you're looking for. But obviously, this is only when someone has that jurisdiction to do so. So it's not like anyone can search it. It's a part of a system, or should be a part of a system where there is legal oversight. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I would say with a system like this, you can kind of see the flows of data. Why was something sent to someone? Why was something downloaded? Why was something deleted, for example? So even if someone deletes something and you might not be able to see what was deleted because it was deleted, obviously, but you can see the person did delete it. Then you can ask questions and have a clear picture of what happened rather than a he said, she said situation in an investigation. An example of this can be if all US government documents are digitized and on a system like Palantir. And let's say we're talking about the President of the United States. In the digital world, if you equate downloading a document to taking them home, for example, then there's a record of what actually happened. What were the steps that led to this and so forth. If the president themselves didn't do something, then you're looking at what their team is doing and like how maybe a communication between the president and someone on their team led to this action. And maybe neither President Donald Trump or Joe Biden really did anything wrong at all. So even that can be resolved in a more transparent way. Another way to think about audit trailing is through regulatory bodies, maybe being able to keep a check on certain KPIs of certain companies, and not just relying on reporting that is littered with conflict of interest. So what I mean by this is like I'm thinking of like the VW scandal where they're misrepresenting their carbon emissions. Another way to think of knowledge management as a use case is in terms of real-time data sharing or stopping apps from sharing data that shouldn't be shared. What I mean by this is how in Gotham, which is one of Palantir's other products, you're able to black out certain cells in a spreadsheet or PowerPoint based on who is viewing and who has access to that data. It's kind of like redacting a document as it's done today, but in real time and dynamically based on who is looking. A further development on this, and subject to a bit of my speculation, is, for example, when sharing your screen on a Zoom call, for instance. The current thing that happens today is when you get on a Zoom call, you can kind of share your screen and you can show someone something they weren't supposed to. When you do it on Zoom like this, there's also no real trail that you did so. My speculation is that if Zoom used Foundry and tapped into an enterprise's knowledge management settings that way, this is something Zoom in partnership with Palantir could stop. So if the Zoom system knows through Palantir each account's security clearances, even if the person with all the access is showing something or sharing their screen on a Zoom call, it would be able to block out, say they were sharing an Excel document and there are specific data points that have gone the whole journey in the data cycle. And now it's in an Excel and there's maybe 5 cells out of 100 that have data points related to something that the second person can't see. So I think something like Palantir can actually just hide out or blank out these 5 cells that the person can't see, because the data, the knowledge management, the security access, the ontology all together work as one system to stop this kind of sharing of data. Again, as opposed to separate tools and sources these parts live on today. This is actually a really interesting concept to think about, and I think a good way to understand Palantir as that meta layer, data fabric, and substrate upon which all other companies latch on and get connected. So again, like I'm saying, the Zoom knows that this Excel can't be shown to someone. So kind of another way to relate and help you think about what Palantir offers in this space is kind of like a digital referee. So in football recently, they've implemented VAR, which is like video assisted referee or virtual assistant referee, something like that. In American football, you've always had this, so too in the NBA, where they kind of go back and look at what actually happened and not just relying on the on-field referee's like first judgment. So Palantir kind of really does that for the whole digital world, I would say, or it can do it if people sign on. So again, this knowledge management is just another aspect, another use case, and another part that when they all come together, make them a lot more valuable than what's out there on the market currently. One last way of thinking about Palantir and why all of this is useful is if you think about how other companies evolve to get to some stage in Palantir cycle, is that they kind of started and went step by step. So in Amazon's case, for example, they had data storage first, then you kind of had this data warehouse, data lake, and a few other features that you want to try and integrate. Then you have the visualization suites with Tableau, Power BI. Then you try to do something else. So it's all building off of each other in an inorganic way. They're kind of just adding stuff onto it. And when you're doing this, especially in tech, it's really hard to do because you're mixing coding ethos, coding principles from different companies. Companies are acquiring a lot, just to improve their growth and their financials. So this is kind of where it breaks down and doesn't become such a great product in the end. It's very good in the sense that it's better than not having it, obviously. But now that we've come really far in this space and there's this company that had this whole idea from the start, it's a bit different. So the way Palantir kind of came about was not thinking about, oh, we need a data storage, we need a data warehouse, we need an ontology, we need visualization, we need this and that. Their problem, what they really started from was, how do we stop terrorism while protecting civil liberties? And what are all the problems encapsulated there? And how do you solve that efficiently? And through this, they found that they need data storage, they need a data warehouse, they need this visualization suite and this ontology. And they, from the start, have kind of worked on this product to be as one. So I don't really know if that helps you distinguish the difference between current products and Palantir. And what I think Palantir will inspire with more competition and people who copy them. So I don't know. Let me know what you think of this analogy and like thinking about how Palantir started off versus other companies and how they've gone to step-by-step building something. Obviously, Palantir also probably had some parts. They've gone step by step, but I think in general, they've stayed very internal and most of their progress has come from the inside. I think they're just, at least at this moment, a pretty far ahead. There's other companies like C3 AI, I think, that have some elements of Palantir, but I'm not fully sure about their approach and how tried and tested and trusted they are. I think Palantir has that advantage from the military testing being done on it, and the fact that they have the highest like US security clearances, things like that. And I don't know a lot of companies that can claim that and put that on their resume. So yeah, again, just food for thought. Please leave some comments. I love comments. It's a great way to engage with the community and share ideas. So thank you for watching, and stay around for the next video, which will be on collaboration.